self-reliant healthcare. That has a picture of the president there. Also, Education Ministry set to introduce revised KG primary curriculum. Media budget review today. I won't ask for more money. The finance minister is saying there's an Access Bank picks 2 Euromoney awards. On the back page, U.S. government donates equipment to Ghana Armed Forces. ADRA supports flood victims. Right? Let's take you to the Ghanaian Times now as well. At AU Extraordinary Summit, Africa leaders seek to end AIDS, TB, as a picture of the president. BOG holds policy rate at 14%, cites global uncertainties, inflation risks. Media budget review. Maintain fiscal discipline, avoid new taxes. Experts tell government. AG reject Wuntumi's 30 million cedis plea bargain offer in Exim Bank case. And Gamanche backs 24-hour economy rally stakeholders. On the back page of the Ghanaian Times, U.S. donates $4 million military equipment to Ghana Armed Forces. And Huerta rice farmers boost yields with new technology. The New Republic, fallout from Edubuahin's trial, bank officer kidnapped to bury 49 million cedi scandal. NPP's secret TikTok army, party accused of funding Val campaign against Mahama. Wuntumi's web titans, plea bargain rejected as legal pile-up deepens. Wuntumi plays sick in jail days after 20-year sentence. That's interesting. Kodia runs to chief imam for prayers as YEA ghosts haunt him. Chada's shadow. Cheddar. The reason is Cheddar. Shadow Empire sees how the new force bosses built, defended, and lost control of his Oxford Street hotel. That's on the front page of the New Republic. The archive, big push project stalls over 9,000 cedis fee to relocate Voodoo. Interesting. Ato Forson road minister urged to intervene. RMG disowns Fourth Estate's publication. I'm not a lazy MP. Sticker fights back. A national standardized test not meant to fail pupils. Deputy Education Minister assures Cassiel NDC chairman suspended via WhatsApp as MP loyalists jubilate. A bit more in terms of the front page stories. The Daily Guide newspaper. I have next. Baumia NPP MP storm in Sawam prison. Wuntumi declared political prisoner. Court rules on Hanan charges today. 2 bastard with 100 wee parcels. 2026 media budget review. Mahama forging economic success. NPP and Parliament approves 822 million World Bank loans. The BNFT is very important as we're talking lots of budgets today. Reset, they say budget. Research must hold without a safety net. FNB research head set 6 texts for mid-year review. BOG sees inflation staying within targets despite mounting external risks. NLA partners Fidelity Bank to boost digital operations. Introduces 5,000 new post machines. So yes, those are the details on the front pages of the newspapers as we have it this morning. K. Kujo is in studio with me, and so is Richmond Maunyo Akpa. It's a finance and economic policy analyst, all joining us this morning for a preview, right? A look ahead into the budget. Gentlemen, good morning to you. I trust that all is well with us.
Yes, good morning, Mawina.
Good morning.
It's a big day in terms of matters relating to the Ghanaian economy and what we will expect from the finance minister a lot later today. Before we even begin to bore listeners with the crunching numbers, let me pick quick thoughts from the both of you. I'll start off with you, Richmond, as to what we're expecting. The finance minister has been speaking and says that he will not be coming for more money.
Yes.
At least from what the graphic is reporting this morning on pages 13. Were you also expecting similar from him, Richmond, even as we look ahead to his presentation today?
Good morning, my brother, and then thank you for having me. Now, the 2026 mid-year fiscal review, budget review, is coming at a critical point in our local economy where we are seeking to consolidate the macroeconomic stability that we've achieved in the last 12 months, and then how we are able to sustain the growth that we are seeking to move on to, and then to equally restore investor confidence in the economy. And as we are doing all this, the Finance Ministry, in partnership with the monetary policy holders, are also trying to create conditions for businesses to expand. So it's coming as what have we been able to achieve from January to June? How do we consolidate those gains? And then how do we adjust ourselves for the second part of the year? So over the past 6 months that we've been looking at our fiscal policies, we've also been witnessing some encouraging improvements in some key macroeconomic indicators of the economy. Inflation has fallen significantly. We've seen how inflation has risen to about 54% in previous years. We've brought it down to as low as 3%. And then as we are talking this morning, food inflation and non-food inflation, plus or minus, is around 5.3%. The cedi has also remained relatively stable. If you look at the US dollar, the pounds, the euros, and other major trading currencies, we've seen that our Ghanaian cedi has become stable. It's making it very easy for businesses to make decisions. It's making it easy for businesses to have predictability. And that's one of the major things that we are looking at to see what the government is seeking to do about that. Are we going to maintain that predictability, or are we going to make false and possible fiscal decisions like pillages that we have in the previous years, whereby we saw how the previous government handled our monies during the COVID-19 expenditure, and then inflation rose because of that. And then we're also looking at fiscal discipline. You know, we were under the IMF program, and then the bailout program has ended. Now we are doing a policy coordination instrument with the IMF. We have moved from a financing program with the IMF to now a monitoring section. So is the Finance Ministry able to ensure that we have fiscal discipline when it comes to our expenditure? Now, what we are seeking as analysts is the projected revenue that government expected or targeted. Have they been able to meet it? Obviously, they have not been able to meet it.
There's been challenges with meeting revenue.
Exactly. There's deficits. How are we financing those deficits? So if the finance minister says that he's coming to parliament and he's not going to ask for more money, then the question is, if you're not asking for more money, how are you preparing to finance those deficits? And then as you hear a lot of young people shouting and saying that Ato is forcing, it also goes to say that, yes, Ato is forcing. Because if the finance minister is not asking for more money, it means that he's putting more pressures on spending. In every good economy, you don't spend more than you earn. If you come to our households, and then you are generating, let's say, 1,000 cedis, and you are spending 1,002, then you have a question mark. But then if you are generating
a deficit of 200 cedis.
Exactly. If you are generating 1,000 cedis as your income, and then you are spending less than 1,000 cedis, then we say that you are being prudent. Now, if you go further to spend, let's say, 800 cedis, then you are now saving about 200 cedis for tomorrow's expenses. So the focus now is that we are expecting how we are going to balance our fiscal discipline with measures that will support production, with measures that will support employment, and then economic transformation in our economy. Thank you, my brother.
Right. Kay, I'll come to you as well for quick thoughts in terms of expectations ahead of, before we even begin to go into a bit more of the details, because we've seen the first quarter fiscal data, which suggests that we didn't quite meet revenue targets, and so we didn't see releases into a number of areas as well, which is of importance for a conversation. And so we'll come and we'll get into those details. But Kay, on your side as well, in terms of what you've been looking at, we've done mid-year already, and we're expecting the minister to be in parliament as well. He says he doesn't expect, he's not going to ask for more money, but what on your side are you expecting from the minister when he does appear today?
In fact, we've been hearing Ato's forcing, and it's showing in our inflation rate. If you look at the current inflation rate, it's impressive, but my concern is many Ghanaians still say life is still expensive. So it leads me to ask, are we defeating inflation or simply living with the permanently higher prices? Another thing that comes to mind immediately is listening to the interaction from market women yesterday. You know, I think we've always encouraged and emphasized that financial comms or financial communication is a bit technical, too technical for the ordinary Ghanaian to understand.
Yeah.
So my expectation today is, as much as people of finance who speak a language of finance, it's important that the language is broken down to the barest minimum so the ordinary people can understand, like the market woman in Makola, in Okainshi. Another thing too is that we appreciate that debt to GDP has fallen, but should Ghanaians celebrate the ratio or pay closer attention to the actual cities we still owe? There's also the point of government's IMF program. Government says the IMF program is over, but can Ghana now discipline itself without the IMF watching from the sidelines? That's also something to expect. And then I'm also concerned about how lower taxes can stimulate businesses, especially. But who pays for the lost revenue if spending remains high? You know, there's a government that came into power with quite a lot of promises, and we will be benchmarking performance with these promises. And the last is that as much as government seems to be doing very well, 1 year from now, I mean, what should Ghanaians expect? 1 year from now, when there's another mid-year budget review, you know, what should Ghanaians expect?
Right. I mean, those are fair representations and a fair way to put it in terms of how the ordinary Ghanaian can relate, right? Can relate to these numbers, and that will be one of our big tasks this morning as well, even as we begin our conversations, how we make all of these huge numbers make a bit more sense to the ordinary person so they can follow the conversation. But let's begin to get a bit more into the details, Richmond. And for the fiscals, we've seen, so mind you, when we say the fiscals, what the output or the health of the economy looks like, right? After the first quarter. So the year is split into 3 quarters. There's January to March, which is the first quarter. There's April to June, which is the second quarter, and we're in the third quarter now, which is July to August, right? Then we go September, November, December, which is the last quarter as well. So after the first quarter, we saw details on the Ghanaian economy, what it looks like, our debt to GDP ratio, how much debt we owe, and all of that. We are yet to see that for the second quarter, which will pretty much sum up half-year report. But looking at the first quarter data, revenue projections, expenditure amongst other things, what does it say in terms of what the plan was when we started the year, vis-a-vis what progress we're making?
Okay. So it's very important for us to know where we are coming from, where we are, and then what we've accomplished within that period of time. Now, we have an economy that our gross domestic product, that's the total monetary value of goods and services in the economy, was growing. However, as the value of the goods and services in our economy was growing, our debt was also rising. So we got to a point where we were having unsustainable debt. We were not able to generate enough revenue to service the debts that we had. Now, when we looked at inflation, inflation was as high as 23.8% before the first quarter. But then by the time the first quarter came to an end, inflation had reduced to about 5.4%, making it a 13-month consecutive decline. And then that has been the lowest inflation we had since the new administration took over as at the first quarter.
Right.
We have seen the value of the exchange rate from about 14.70 Ghana cedis to about a 10.45 Ghana cedis at the end of the first quarter. That means the Ghanaian cedi has grown or has gained more value of about 40.7% against the major trading currency, which is the United States dollar. Now, as at that, because of that benefit, our gross domestic product also saw an increase. Because if our currency, our domestic trading currency, sees value, it also boosts the total monetary services in our economy. Bloomberg, in the early part of 2025, named the Ghanaian currency one of the best performing currencies in the world. Now, when we look at our public debt, we met a public debt at the beginning of the first quarter around 61.8%. But then by the end of the first quarter, public debt had come down to about 45.3% of our gross domestic product. I keep saying gross domestic product, but then the real meaning is the total monetary value of what we are trading in our country. If you sell pure water, you sell cassava, and then somebody is giving you a service by maybe sewing your clothes around the whole borders of our economy, that is how much we are gaining. And then if that monetary value is not sustainable, matching against our public debt, that is where we had an issue where people were losing their coupons, people were losing their bonds, people were losing their investments, because it got to a time that we were not generating enough to service the debts that we had in the economy. Now we have something we call reserves, our international reserves, what is going to prevent external shocks from affecting households, from affecting businesses, from affecting industries. We had about 9.1 billion in our reserve, which was about a 1.5 months import cover. The Bank of Ghana has grown our international reserves to about a 13.8 billion, which was a record high, covering about 5.7 months import cover. And then with that, the projection that at the end of the first quarter, it had grown from the 13.8 billion to about 14.5 billion, which now represent around 5.8 months import cover. So it's a very beautiful thing that the Bank of Ghana and then the Ministry of Finance are doing. Now, when you talk about policy rate is also another major economic indicator that we have in our economy.
Absolutely.
Policy rates, the monetary policy rate basically influences monetary policy. What the monetary policy does is it guides how much commercial banks loans money to households and to businesses. So if the monetary policy rate is high, it means access to credit is going to be high. Just as our brother Kekujo was saying that one of the key things he's looking at seeing in this mid-year fiscal review is how businesses have access to credit facilities. The more access they have to credit facilities, and then how easier it is for businesses to have access to credit facilities. And one of the wonderful things that the Bank of Ghana has done is to make sure that they reduce the monetary policy rate. As at yesterday, there was a monetary policy conversation, and then it was agreed that we are reducing it to our 14%.
I think it's been maintained.
Yes, at 14%.
It's been maintained at 14%.
So at the end of the first quarter, it was around 18%, and then reduced to 14%, and then still maintained at 14%. What this means is that access to credit facility in the country is going to be easier, it's going to be more affordable as compared to last year. And then lending rates, before the beginning of the first quarter, lending rates as one of the major economic indicators was around 30.25%. At the end of the first quarter, which was March 2026, lending rates had come to around 20.45%, which further reactions and the reductions have been achieved to about 17.7%. The Bank of Ghana governor has said that one of the legacies that he wants to leave is that at the end of his tenure, he wants lending rates in the country should be around 10%, or he will bring it to a single digit. That means that even international businesses might come to Ghana to have access to credit facilities. It means the economy is growing. The economy that was once in the ICU was taken from the ICU to a recovery room. He has been stabilized. The economy has been stabilized. And then one of the beautiful things that the monetary policy budget review is given to our market women is this sense of belongingness. The finance ministry has come so down to use simple languages to explain what these major economic indicators mean. Now, these figures I'm giving are the figures that had happened in the first quarter. Now, if we look at the second quarter, as inflation came down as low as 5.4, the main target by the Bank of Ghana and then the Ministry of Finance was at the end of the year, inflation should be around 8% plus or minus 2%.
3FM 92.7.
The year-on-year inflation for both food and non-food inflation, as at the end of June, was around 5.3%. Now, what is inflation? Inflation basically means the rate at which the prices of goods or services in our economy, general prices, increases, the average ones. So if prices are increasing at a rate of about 50-something%, it means if you buy a bottle of water today for 1 cedi, the propensity that when you go in the afternoon, the price might change is very high. But then when the inflation rate is as low as 5.3%, which was what was recorded at the end of the second quarter, that's June 2026, it means that if you go to buy a bottle of water at 1 cedi and you go in the afternoon, you can still get it at that price. It promotes predictability in our economy. Once there's predictability, business owners, households can go in for credit facilities, have access to these credit facilities, and then achieve their business targets. Because now, you know that when you go for a loan, you are going for a loan at a reduced interest rate. When you buy a commodity, which is, let's say, a bottle of water, at the end of the day, you will know that, yes, I'm buying it at 1 cedi, my profit is 20 pesos, so I can sell it at 1 cedi, 20 pesos. But then we've seen a time in this country that you go to a store or a shop or a mart, and then you buy a pack of water at 2 cedis. When you come in the afternoon, the price has changed. So one of the main things that this government has achieved is stability, macroeconomic stability. They've ensured that the inflation rate has reduced. And then we also seen the monetary policy rate, which we just spoke about, the 14.0%, which has been maintained after achieving such a lower percentage from about 20-something% to 17%, and then now we're at 14. Now, the inflation target of the BOG is 8% plus or minus 2%. What we also mean to achieve is inflation at the end of the year, at the end of the fiscal year 2026, should not rise above 8%.
That's the target of the
Exactly.
of the Bank of Ghana.
Exactly. And then as at now, we are around 5.3%. So it means fairly, the Ministry of Finance is doing something that is very commendable. And then one of the key things that we need to keep talking about is fiscal discipline. We are only able to achieve this good macroeconomic figures because there's fiscal discipline. Once there is a little level of expenditure spillage, because we are not even able to meet our revenue targets. Our budget is around 300 billion. We've been able to raise around 264 billion. And then we are looking at financing about 34.4 billion. If we do not take care, and then we are spending anyhow, our inflation rate will go very high, and it will take us back from where we are coming from. Because there was a time that we had our debt to GDP over 80%. It was unsustainable. Now, debt to GDP has been brought down to about 42 to 45% relatively. It means that we now have enough revenue. We are generating enough revenue through our production, through the businesses that we bring into the country. That's our investment, our foreign direct investment, our local production, and the services that we are providing. So the finance ministry also needs to keep a close eye on how the critical sectors of our economy are spending. When I say critical sectors, I'm talking about our agricultural sector, our health sector, the road sector, the infrastructure sector. We need to keep a close eye on them and ensure that the investments we are doing are bringing in returns. Once they are returns that have value, then they can keep spending. But if you have government social programs like the no stress free,
the no fee stress, right?
No fee stress programs and the other programs that government seeks to do, mainly to ensure that the livelihoods of Ghanaians are easier, and then we don't have any good immediate returns, we are going to say that some of these things are going to put a kind of pressure that we wouldn't want on our numbers. Now, finally, would be our exchange rate. One of the key things that this government has been able to achieve is a stability in our exchange rate. There was a time in this country that you'll be surprised that a lot of Ghanaians were rather buying dollars and saving dollars with the hope that when December comes, the value of the dollar will rise to almost 20 Ghana cedis. But now nobody is doing that again. Everybody now wants to trade in the Ghanaian cedi because they know that it's not going to happen. It's not been possible. The Ghana Gold Board had raked in about a $10 billion facility for the Ghanaian economy. We went to the IMF for how much? $3 billion. One of the beautiful things that the finance minister is going to say today is the achievements that they have made through the Ghana Gold Board. We are now in a phase where the Ghana Gold Board is transitioning just from importing the raw gold doors, into now refining these raw gold doors into gold bars and then building up reserves. So I think that we are no longer even in the phase of recovery or stability. We are now transiting into the space of growth that is going to ensure that there are job opportunities for our youthful population. The young Ghanaian population is going to have enough jobs. There's going to be enough funds to pay salaries on time. One of the few issues that we have in this country is government paying national service personnel their allowances on time, government paying our teachers, the teacher trainees, their allowances on time, and then when they transition into the corporate world, paying their salaries on time to the health sector. Very soon, all these issues will be issues of the past because as a country, our economy is going to grow to a certain level that we would have enough funds to run all this. Now, our current account balance as another major economic indicator is also strong, being backed by our gold exports and then our cocoa exports. At the end of the first and second quarter, we had a surplus of about $3.1 billion as our current account balance. This simply means that with our international reserves and our trade balance of close to $1 billion, the Ghanaian economy is now breathing and then ready for growth. And then I am confident to say that these are parts of the reasons why the finance minister says that he doesn't need to present any supplementary budget today. He is going to account to the good people of Ghana that yes, we have come, you gave us your vote, you trusted us with your economy, we have worked for you, the macroeconomic indicators are healthy, and then we are hoping that we are going to move from recovery, we are moving from stability to a level whereby we are going to give the Ghanaian economy growth. Thank you.
Right. It's important, all of the things you mentioned. I'm going to as well mention that my colleague Beatrice Idru is in studio with us as well. Just quickly on your expectations as well ahead of that presentation by the finance minister a lot later this afternoon.
Yeah, I think that basically we've seen the indicators as regards the economy, the macroeconomic stability in the last few months, and also the fact that inflation, as you know, I think around May was around 3.7 or so, and now is 5 point something. So we need to 5.3. We need to be able to find out what's influenced that. Yes, aside from food inflation, that has really characterized our inflation and the indicators of our macroeconomic, system. We know that non-food inflation, housing, which is still a major problem. I mean, we've been talking about housing for a very long time, has dominated education as well as transport. So I'm looking forward to really policies that would help address the housing thing. I remember that in November when he presented the budget, he talked about the government, I think, rent-to-own policy that already they established the system. They were hoping that we'll get about 10,000 houses available for those who are in the public and other institutions that receive regular salary, and it will be at low cost, as it were, for them. So we should be able to look at all these things. So I'm looking at that. What is the larger plan for the housing sector, the plan for... We've already heard bits and pieces of the education. Like this morning, we talked about the fact that the Education Ministry has approved, a new curriculum for primary, among other, sectors of our education. So I'm really looking at a holistic thing. Also, last year, they did promise that we're going to have a retooling of our equipment within the military.
Yeah.
Exactly. And out of the 4, we've received 1. We're expecting the rest within, is it 4 years? We should be able to get updates on all of these. But most importantly, which is the question on the lips of everybody, that whatever policies that are in place would reflect in the lives of Ghanaians. Because what's the point of having a single-digit inflation when people still find things expensive on the market? And I know that, again, yesterday we had the MPA telling us that they had received some crude from, is it Essentio and other places for our local refineries. We should be able to look at that as well, because fuel is, yes, not as expensive as it used to be many years ago, but it's still on the high side, which I believe is the reason we are having transport, for instance, influencing inflation. And so I'm looking for really these critical areas that would impact directly on the lives of the ordinary Ghanaian, including myself. And also in terms of our health facilities, what are we doing? Because health is important, and a lot of people don't have access to quality health care. So the hospitals and the health facilities that need completion and operationalization, what is the plan for the next half of the year? These are capital intensive stuff, but
Absolutely.
We can start from somewhere just so we know that we are on course towards making progress.
Very, very important, the points you make, because we know the budgets pretty much conveys the vision of the government. And so manifesto promises, call it what, they will receive funding and support from the budget, which will be presented by the finance minister. And we have as well, we've detailed expenses and plans by the government in relation to the different sectors, from the energy ministry to education to health, amongst other things. There are key projects which have been detailed, expected to receive some support, right? It will be important to know today where we are at.
Exactly.
On a number of those as well.
Because if you look at the numbers, education, I think, received the highest,
they
right?
always receive,
39 billion point something Ghana cedis, followed by the big push agenda, 30 billion, and of course the rest you have single and 11 and 10 among others. Unfortunately, Agric, which we say is our backbone, didn't really receive much.
About
I think it
3
received
billion.
less than 5 billion, exactly. So I agree with you totally on the big push. If you remember, minority raised issues about the sole sourcing, all of those things. We didn't really have the roads minister coming to us to specify that, okay, out of, let's say, 200, this was this, that was this. Yes, there were some bits and pieces of explanations here and there, but the finance minister, like you rightly said, should be able to break it down for us that out of the 30 billion for the big push agenda, we've used 10 billion, and this is the level of progress in terms of work across the country. In terms of education, I'm just wondering, we talked about completing the e-blocks, among others. Yes, what's the progress on education as well, and in terms of implementing certain policies, how much has been spent? So really there's a lot of expectation, perhaps from our side, but I believe a number of Ghanaians as well, regarding how we have spent the money.
Very important, the questions you ask. Okay, if we want to take it sector by sector as well, it will be stock taking.
Yes.
It will be stock taking midway point in the year. And the promises were lofty. Every time when the budget is being read, more often than not, I'm in Parliament, right? So going through the budget last year and this year as well, huge things to be done, particularly on the agric sector,
Yes.
where we are supposed to see farmer service centers and
Yes.
some others. We should be getting updates on a number of those key government interventions in these respective sectors as well.
Yes, in fact, Mawina, talking of agriculture, food security, for instance, if we look at agriculture and transport investments, they were expected to strengthen food security, food supply, but currently food security is at 38.1%. That is up 2.8 percentage points from quarter one of 2024 in the last displayed GSS measure. So if we're looking at it from that perspective, it's a contradiction because ideally food security should decline alongside inflation. It's not the point. We can only hope that the report on the mid-year budget review would have some interventions or policy directions that will improve that area as well. And then we look at the agricultural enclave roads. For instance, the 3-year program for 1,000 kilometers to reduce transport costs and food losses as well. The program remains within its implementation window, but kilometers awarded, started, and completed, regional distribution, cost per kilometer, it's all pending delivery. And the policy logic is sound, but it's delayed. So with regards to agriculture, these are concerns that some of us have as well. And then we look at my hardest conclusions. I mean, first we must appreciate that government has beaten its own inflation and growth.
The targets from there, right?
Of course. We must appreciate that it is not propaganda at all. I mean, the data is out there for those who want to verify. And secondly, we must also appreciate that falling debt ratio is not the same as disappearance of debt. So Ghana may be safer without being debt-free or fully market normalized. That's also another angle. My third point is that the biggest accountability gap is no longer the absence of positive numbers. It's the absence of a clear transformation ledger. We haven't seen a transformation ledger. Have you seen one?
Not that we're aware of, right?
So we are asking how much of lower inflation, lower treasury rates, and a stronger CD has reached wages, bank loans, food access, and employment. So those are also very important to the conversation. And my fourth, which is the last but one, is our economic contradiction is now stuck. If we look at the GDP growth, it's 6.4%, inflation at 5.3%, but unemployment is still at 13%, and food insecurity is at 38.1%. That is a concern. And then finally, I would say the importance of managing our economy in a way that translates to our living realities is non-negotiable. We cannot say all the beautiful things on paper and feel them differently. Like I mentioned earlier, the market woman in Makola, she's still dealing with higher prices. She acknowledges that the currency is a lot stable now, but she also complains that it has not impacted her business in a way that creates sustainability for the longevity of her business in terms of accessing loans and things like that. So most of all the beautiful things that we hear when these reports are presented, is awesome. I mean, analysts will fact check, verify, punch holes, and do all of those things. But it's important that the ordinary people are able to feel these changes. That's why I mentioned the transformation ledger is very important. Where we were, where we are now, why we are where we are now, and where we are headed. It's one we should look at. So if I should look at a scorecard, which I prepared one, by the way, but I'm looking at inflation control. I'll look at the dimensions and then the grade. For inflation control, a good A, because it's clear and substantial outperformance. And for GDP growth, it will be an A minus. For CD and reserves, it will be a B plus. For interest rates, it will be a B plus. For debt ratio, it will be a B plus. Fiscal transparency, it will be a B plus. I think there's been a lot of transparency and fiscal discipline, as well as compared to the last 8 or 10 years. For revenue, incomplete. For jobs, it's a D plus. And that is why I highlighted it as a concern, because 13% unemployment is still stuck. And then for cost of living, I will do a C. For flagship implementation, is incomplete because many projects remain within their timelines, but measurable public delivery data is weak. So for structural transformation as well, I'll do a C plus. So overall economy, a B plus as well. So in a nutshell, this is a government that's performing. I mean, we should applaud Ato, but Oliver Twist. We'll always ask for more.
Expectation to ask for more.
Yes.
I'm curious, right, as to how we begin to see this translate into the lives of the ordinary Ghanaian.
Yes.
I think after the first year, we've been told increasingly that we need to consolidate, and we're seeking to consolidate the gains. In fact, it informs the decision and the pathway we chose with the IMF post the ECF facility or the ECF program that we enjoyed. There's always that curious line as to seeing this translate into the life of the ordinary Ghanaian. And so after 1 year, we've seen the currency stabilize to a great extent. The rate of depreciation with which we saw in previous times no longer exists. How do we see it translate? Because somewhere last year, we were having conversations as to why businesses were not reducing their goods to correspond with the exchange rate gains which the city had enjoyed. And the government kept telling us that, well, they were not directly in charge of determining prices or price control on the market. Guta and the likes also told us that, you know what, after a few months it will reflect. Has it reflected? Are we better off, at least in terms of the net positives from the exchange rate and the economic data points? Well, we've mentioned policy rates coming from the 23%. It's been 14% since the ending part of the first quarter into the second quarter. Yeah. It's been 14, which means that how much it will cost you to borrow has reduced.
Yeah.
Is that translating into the price you're paying for goods and services as well? Right? There's always that question I ask myself in my head whenever we discuss economic data.
When we discuss
how it's translated.
Economic data, Mawina, I think two things come into mind because I've been a staunch advocate of reforms within the cocoa sector. I'm very passionate about it. I think if you followed, I've published about a 7-part series on the cocoa sector called the Cocoa Board Files. We still have farmers who haven't been paid. And PBC still struggles to sustain its operations. I had a conversation with an employee, a regular employee at PBC, and the kind of things I heard were very disturbing. So
with PBC?
Yes, with PBC. I mean, they've been in the news. They were captured by routers recently. If you look at their debt, and this is debt that came from 8 years of Akufo-Addo's administration. I would say possibly they inherited quite some debt as well, but it ballooned during the last 8 years, during Akufo-Addo's administration. And fast forward, PBC still has to deal with some of these challenges. So whilst we say all the beautiful things, let's not forget that the farmers that rely on PBC's sustainability are Ghanaians too. Are they experiencing the positive indicators as we have seen in our GDP, our inflation? I mean, all the big grammar we speak. You know, these farmers don't understand that. All they understand is the season is near, and does PBC have what it takes to, I mean, work or function, be operational this year, this farming season? The season is just a year away. So as much as we are excited about Ato's performance, and there's a lot of fiscal discipline, so there's no reckless spending and so on and so forth, I think a lot of people have been fingering and bickering because he has ultimately been overly disciplined in terms of spending. But PBC stands out for me, and the unpaid cocoa farmers also stand out for me. And that brings us to the conversation on the ordinary Ghanaian. You know, the ordinary Ghanaian definitely sees things from a different perspective. I mean, we've seen PURC do some skirmishes in the last few weeks as well, some utility increments here and there. I mean, how does this affect the ordinary Ghanaian positively? And I think that's what we continue to ask, because if we speak all the big grammar, the nice grammar, present all the fine numbers, and it looks fine on paper and it does not translate positively into the lives of ordinary Ghanaians, then we're just lying to ourselves.
Absolutely, and that's not what we want to be doing. In terms of a look ahead, right? Lying to ourselves as a people, and we're still building up to that all-important address by the Finance Minister later this afternoon as well. Dr. Cassiel Ato Forson with the mid-year budget review presentation. Let us know what you make of it as well. And unfortunately a bit of a challenge, and so we're unable to stream us at this morning, but I'm going to share our WhatsApp numbers with you so that you can let us know what you're looking forward to hear from the minister a lot later today as he comes around to deliver that mid-year budget review statement. So 053 220 0927 053 220 0927 is the WhatsApp number by which you can reach out to us, right? You can reach out to us this morning and be a part of the conversation in relation to what your expectations are. 053 220 0927 053 220 0927. I'm going to come to you, Beatrice, again on what sticks out for you. I mean, I heard you go on the first tangent, but in terms of the different sectors and what we've been tracking, what you want to hear a bit more from. I, for one, I'm looking forward to updates from the retooling of the Ghana National Fire Service, for instance. That was big in the budget. I've looked forward to it coming through because I have friends who are in the fire service who every now and then tell me about the difficulty in being able to go about their operations. And so I'm looking forward to when the new equipment for the fire service will come through, and all of that, and hoping we can get some updates as well from the finance minister, because that was one of the many things which was promised during this budget presentation for the 2026 fiscal year.
The name is Kojo, right?
Yes, Kojo.
Yes, I think I heard him.
K.
Kujo, yes. I heard him talk about the need for us to move away from the rhetorics or the usual cliches, and for us to concentrate a lot more on really doing something that would change the economy and the lives of people. That's a very critical area you have spoken about, because I was shocked, and that's like an understatement, to find out that the fire service didn't even have a single boat. And so when
it had to come from Maritime Authority.
I just couldn't believe it. June 29, they had to rely on other security agencies, allied agencies, just for them to get the equipment they needed to do their work, which meant that the saving time was reduced, because if I had it, I'll come straight to you. If I didn't, it would take me an hour or two, and a lot of damages would have been caused. So that's a critical thing. But again, I'm looking at, which is why I quoted what Kekujo said, I'm looking at our debt sustainability. Yes, over the period, a little over 80% debt to GDP, ratio, dropping to, I think now is below 50, right?
Yeah.
Below 50 with over 45, with over 700 billion Ghana cedi debt. I'm looking at how much we can still bring it lower, and other means of servicing our foreign debts. I know that we renegotiated a lot of them, plus the local ones with the IPPs, because the more we are able to deal with this, the more we have money on our hands to do what we have to do. But in addition to that as well, we've always complained about importing almost everything. Toothpicks, drinks, all of that. I know in the previous administration, they talked about industrialization. One district, one factory might not have materialized as was expected, but looking at it, really, if it is something that you pay attention, you decide to pay attention to, you're going to really not just give employment, but also reduce the import. So for me, in the next half, I don't know which sector it would fall under. Will it fall under Greek? Where exactly, if we are looking at reducing our imports? I mean, we can talk about tomatoes, onions. Yes, a bit of it may fall under Greek. Across several.
I think, even with tomatoes, for instance,
yes,
you mentioned we were trying to be sustainable. But my concern has been that we're always saying these things.
That's the point I'm making.
We're always saying these beautiful things, and it makes me start to feel like there's an accident. You picture this, there's an accident, and the first responders who come to the scene, you're bleeding from your head, and he's busy dealing with a scratch on your finger, and it's picture perfect for the fire service incident, because we're putting money in certain places and neglecting other areas that are very essential.
Yeah, so
government is responding to that. Because the last time the Minister for the Interior,
I will let you land, but just for me to land very briefly, and I'll let you come in. I'm just looking forward to really the policies that would ensure that we are able to deal with our imports, because that's a major thing and a major problem. We're always complaining about the huge public sector wage bill, but I think that if we have enough to reduce our imports and all of that, we may not necessarily be complaining about because people have to be paid. And if you look at it realistically, a lot of people in the public sector are not even paid that much compared to the cost of living in Ghana. And so if you're able to have the policies that would, help us reduce our imports and also improve revenue mobilization and cut off other unnecessary stuff, which I think this government over the period has been consistent at, the importing of vehicles, all of those things. They've been intentional at dealing with that, which you may call the excesses of spending. I'm looking forward to hearing all of these things.
With the kind of things you're saying, I wouldn't support you that much. The reason why I wouldn't support you is I don't think people should be paid as to the cost of living. You're being paid on the value that you bring on board. If
So
the
you're
value-
saying those in
if-
public sector
No.
don't bring that
No,
much value
I never
to
said
deserve
that.
how much they are.
I never said that. I am
Okay.
saying that businesses don't pay employees based on the cost of living. Businesses pay employees on the value that they bring on board.
Not to cut you, but
Sure.
when you say businesses pay based on value, their cost of living is inclusive. As employers, I mean, we know these things because if you're bringing value,
92.7.
that value must be delivered.
Exactly.
And there are inputs that allows that value to
Exactly.
be delivered.
Exactly.
So if my cost of
if the-
hold on,
But
hold on.
I sort
If
of
my
disagree
cost of
with him
if
as
my
well,
cost of
because-
living, right? If I'm earning 1,000 Ghana cedis in a month, but my cost of living does not sustain.
why I say what I'm saying
That.
is
No, I'm
When-
only
when-
saying that so you
Yes.
so
No,
you,
no.
you paraphrase.
no, I don't want to paraphrase. I actually stand by what I'm saying. That is the very reason why there are different levels of pay in Ghana. The amount of money you are earning is not the same amount of money that I am
No,
earning.
but you see, your argument.
it is relative to the value that individually we are bringing on board.
I may understand it in the context of the developed world where people are actually paid based on their value. There are so many people who bring so much value and are still
But
underpaid. And you agree with
We
that?
live in a country that the chief executives of state enterprises are earning so high, about 50,000 Ghana cedis. And then we live in the same country where those who are also delivering some services are paid less than even 5,000 Ghana
To an
cedis.
extent that chief directors.
We are all in the same economy, but then the value that they bring on board is distinct. The cost of living is the same for all of us.
No, I disagree with you. So
that
I'm
is the reality. You
No,
need to
so I'm
accept,
just
you need
saying
to
that-
accept the reality in the first place. Then
no.
you make a recommendation. If you do not accept the reality and you're making a recommendation, then it is flawed.
No,
That's what I'm saying.
No, the point I'm making is that you may want to disagree with cost of living and payments because it's just like somebody going to a company and saying that you need to employ me because I have a wife and children to take care of. Of course.
That's the cost of living.
Yes, so that's what I'm saying, that I agree with you not adjusting salaries based on cost of living.
It's good you
Although
agree.
that
Then we
should
can now move to your point.
no, I'm not fully agreeing.
The point
Although
you are
that
making
should
is right, actually. The point you're making is
But
right.
let me-
But that's
let
not
me
the
just-
reality on
yeah,
ground.
let me
No,
just
the
make
reality
my
is
point.
that it's not definite.
Exactly.
Because we still consider cost of living.
Yes,
When
it's
we are-
Considered. It is
Flex.
considered.
So
But then
the point I'm making is that when you talk of the value they bring, yes, the value they bring, but you must also create an enabling environment for them to deliver that value.
Exactly. And the other bit of it, which is why the major reason I disagree with you, is that it is a known fact that a lot of people bring so much value on board to their various works,
And they don't get
they are not paid. Why do you have huge numbers of people wanting to leave? They are providing the same services for you that you are giving them one cedi. When they go out, they are paid like £100 or
There was a
100
military
euros or
officer who was
$100.
so happy when he left Ghana and
Of
joined
course.
the service overseas, because if he looks at the value exchange, it's better. So, I mean, she's making a point. You are equally making a point. That's why I'm saying that what you're saying to support your point is true, but it's not definite, because we do consider the cost of living. Because if you don't create an enabling environment for me to deliver that value, how do I deliver that value? At the end of the day, if my salary is 1,000 Ghana cedis and it will cost me 100 cedis to come to work every day for 25 working days, do the math, my brother. So we're saying that the cost of living should at least reflect in a way that adds value to what you are delivering, to whatever organization you exist in.
You know, with our economy, we are more of a private sector-led economy. When you look at most of the things that are happening in our
3FM,
country, most of them are private sector-led. When you look at the
92.7.
Ghana Stock Exchange,
Yeah.
most of the businesses that are really making it out there are private sector-led. Are they paying their employees well? They are. When it comes to the government sector, major health, education, are they also paying their employees well? We always say that the rewards of teachers are in heaven. the value that they are bringing in board, is it reflecting in their pay? So I would equally agree with you when you come from the cost of living. That is what must be done. But then in reality, can it be done? If the total value of our gross domestic product is around 100 billion, and then we are saying that recently there's a 9% base pay, over 90 billion out of what we are generating is going directly into servicing or compensation of employees in the country. If you use all the money that we generate to pay all these people, which money are we going to have to embark on our capital?
That is where the crust of my argument is. Yes, Ghana is a developing country, but it has been used as the excuse for, it will amaze you.
It's not an excuse, that's the reality.
It will amaze you. Yes, reality. How long do we have to live in this reality? Because
and I think that's why we supported the reset agenda. Because we were hoping that the reset agenda will reset our realities.
In your earlier presentation, I realized you mentioned that the GDP growth is around 6.something%.
Yeah.
That clearly states that the country is growing. It cannot grow out.
So actually, I'm not even talking about because this reset or what was the theme for Akufo-Addo's government. Whatever it is, these are just governments.
Better Ghana beyond
these are just political, institutions that are coming in. Yes, whichever one it is. I'm not looking at Party A or Party B. Exactly. I'm looking at Ghana as a country and a system that ensures that if I was at 10 years ago as a country, by now, after 10 years, there should be some level of progress. There shouldn't always be the story, this is our system. Because all those countries which have developed and have made progress, they started from somewhere. But there was that consistent effort towards moving from level 1 to level B. That is what I'm talking about when I say that there should be some sort of policies that gradually move us forward.
That's why we have the big push policy.
No, I'm not talking. You're still talking political.
I'm not talking politics. That is what is happening. The big push policy is making sure that we have road infrastructure. If there's no road infrastructure, how do you move your cocoa products?
That is excellent.
From the farm to Accra or to export it. So recently, we've seen another policy whereby we are putting up a rail system whereby the containers from the port are no longer going to use our roads. It means the dependency on the road is going to reduce. The durability of the road is going to increase. So there are policies to move us from where we are to a better future. That's what I want you to agree with me.
So let me tell you where I'm coming from. Okay. I'm coming from the perspective of national development projects.
But are these not national development projects?
Yesterday we had Professor Frimpong Boateng speaking at the 14th memorial event of the late Professor Evans Atamils, the former president, where he talked about the need for us not just to stick to individual political party policies, which I don't have a problem with, really, because they help, but to have a national, like a sort of vision for the country, so that if Mawene's political party comes to power, and I'm not saying it is A or B, for instance, your party is Mawena, you come in, there is a bit that you're doing. Beatrice's political party comes in, there's a bit. So it is not based on NDC, MPP, CPP, no. It is a project, so that if you come in, you do your bit. If you still come in with your political party policies, you're still implementing them along that national vision. And then we know that as a collective country, we're moving somewhere. That's the argument I'm making. I'm not making arguments based on which party came in with which policy.
Sure.
Fair enough. We have to go for this break. Today there's no sports because of the build up to the mid-year budget review. But we'll go for this break. Richmond, I understand you leave us at some point in time as well. But we'll have other guests who will join us in studio, and then we'll continue the conversation in the build up to the presentation by the finance minister a lot later this afternoon as well. So thank you very much, guys.